Uh, we're so glad you're with us. What we have today is a casual conversation, very much like as if we were in a coffee shop, talking to some of my favorite people in the profession about their experience. And the topic of conversation today is faculty development post-pandemic. What have been our experiences with faculty development programs to transform teaching and learning over the years, and how have they informed what we're doing, like maybe literally this summer or in the current context to make a difference, and primarily to meet those top three objectives that we just talked about: student engagement, faculty development, and access. And so thanks everyone for being with us. If you would please put your questions in your Q&A in the Q&A pod and not so much the chat pod. We have three people on the line: Sebastian DeStefano, Catherine Neal, and Jason Katzoff, who I hope will have access to both the chat pod, but especially the Q&A pod for answering questions. We're going to have the three panelists and myself are going to talk about what they're doing in terms of innovating faculty development on their campus at the moment, and they'll each take a turn talking about a very different kind of approach. And so that the idea is that you'll get the opportunity to compare what other people are doing and thinking about what might be right for your campus. And so they'll take turns describing their programs. And then at the end, we'll have 15 minutes of just open conversation, where we will engage the Q&A pod, and we'll talk amongst ourselves about the issues that come up between each of our profiles here. And so real quickly, I'm going to ask everyone to turn to introduce themselves. And then Holly's going to go first. And so Holly, if you'd introduce yourself, tell everyone where you're from real quickly and your title. And then we'll go to Kyle and then Annie.
Hi, good morning from Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, at the university. Oh, I held up my coffee cup, but you can't see it. I am the Associate Director of Learning Experience, Innovation and Outreach right now, so it's a new position, and just thrilled to be here.
Thank you, Holly. What do you, Kyle?
Good morning, Kyle Bowen, Executive Director of Learning Experience here at Arizona State University. Glad to be with everybody.
And Anne.
Hi, I'm Ann Hoag. I'm a professor of communications at Penn State, and I'm the director of, I've got a bunch of new titles now, but I'll just say one of them, the director of the Center for Student Entrepreneurship at Penn State.
All right, and so I'm going to remove the spotlight from Kyle and Ann, and we're going to talk with Holly first. If you want to change your view in Zoom, you can do that in the top right-hand corner. You go between speaker view and gallery view. I'm going to suggest speaker view for now because our guests will be sharing their coffee thoughts and sometimes sharing their screen. So Holly, tell us what you've been up to at the University of Utah. I know you have some really exciting digital literacy initiatives going on that began before the pandemic that have been in some cases accelerated, in other cases modified. And tell us where you are in terms of faculty development and responding to the specific context of your campus, and in particular, what you're planning this summer to prepare for the new normal that will begin in fall of 2021. Holly, what's up in Utah right now?
So what's up here is we're really looking at how we're doing innovation grants. So this last year, we saw our teams and our instructional designers, everyone working with faculty. We found an increased faculty outreach as we had webinars and workshops, whatnot. We found increasing participation and increasing need for faculty who are looking for new ways to innovate their assignments just from the written paper and into making more dynamic content. And so what we've decided to do is, in the past, we've had innovation grants, which people apply for. They get the grant and then they work for a year and they do amazing things, but we haven't had a real catch-all to really have that summary as far as what their experience is and how we share that out to our broader community across campus. So what we're looking at right now is we're moving to more of a cohort model. So once again, this is going to be a great way to get faculty interested in using new technologies in their classrooms. So we're going to have a pre-proposal process. And so we're going to have help set up. So really around this, there's going to be an entire support system for this faculty. So for the faculty that this is a brand new concept, or they've been afraid to try something because they've been rallying just in this new normal, right? We're going to have help wrapped around them. So basically what we're going to do is have a community of practice. We're going to meet monthly with these faculty. We're going to discuss best practices. They're going to receive coaching. So what we will have embedded in this is we'll have our instructional designers, we'll have librarians, we'll also have support for them using the Adobe applications. And so from there, we're going to have ongoing consultations with them. And then at the end of the year, we will have a symposium. So this will be a great chance for all of them to come together. They've been working throughout the school year together once a month, sharing what their projects are. And then at the end of the year, really presenting what their findings were and what their projects were. So we're hoping to expand this to a broader audience. And we found with Zoom that we just have so much more participation because we're basically meeting faculty where they're at, right? They're in their homes or they're in their offices, whatnot. And so this is going to be a whole new shift for us. So it's an innovation grant. We're hoping to get around 20 to 30 faculty. And that's basically what we're putting. So I expect that we're going to be reporting on this a year from now as far as what our findings are. But I think that this is going to be a really interesting new way of reaching out to faculty, providing the coaching and development, and really supporting them with also the Adobe tools. We have Adobe creative consultants now that are students. So we'll be meeting with the faculty and finding out what their needs are. And then we'll be customizing a little kit for them, a digital kit as far as all the modules they need, all the support that they need for using an Adobe application. So that's what's going on here.
That sounds great. Let's zoom out a little though, and kind of take a little bit more of a historic view to think about how we got to this program and what are the sort of principles informing it. And so if you would, just for people who don't know about University of Utah and your position and what your unit does, you would kind of just talk in general about digital teaching and digital literacy across the Utah curriculum. Briefly mention a couple of the amazing facilities you have, such as the Lasan Studio and the new Residence Hall experience. So people can have a kind of sense of like, what was the context for digital teaching and learning before the pandemic, so that we can then place this particular new emerging faculty development program in that context in terms of responding to guiding principles and goals.
Right. So we're located in the faculty center. So what we have is we have our partners, the Center for Teaching and Learning. They run the workshops, webinars, and they're helping faculty one-on-one with CVs, their teaching syllabus, whatnot. And then in the technology side, we've been helping them build courses. So we have instructional designers. We've been helping faculty individually, but also for colleges, departments, whatnot. And then for our two centers, our dynamic centers that Todd is talking about, is we have the Lasan, which is a live work launch. So that's through the business school, and students live there and they end up, they have a maker space. So they have materials at hand, they have 3D printers, they have a wood shop, they have a sewing machine, whatnot. So they have these hands-on approaches, but then they also are able to pitch business plans. So they have the structure built around them to really, how do they take their plans and really make them a reality? And then they apply for grants for supporting what their business plan is from external resources around Salt Lake City. And then we have a brand new housing facility, which is called Callert Village. And this is the most exciting development that we will be having programming this year. It's a housing development that has 3 towers we have a tower for STEM, we have a tower for community engaged learning, and a tower for health and wellness. So within that is the Adobe Creative Commons. And what that is going to be is really the center where we have creative consultants, students who will be trained in running workshops, facilitating consultations with students, and then I'll be meeting with faculty. So I'll be meeting with faculty and then positioning them to work with a creative consultant as far as creating the examples for their courses and running workshops for their students. So traditionally, as far as how we've run the technology is we've appreciated the early adopters, right? The faculty that come to us, they want the innovation grant, they have these big ideas, and it's wonderful. And so we're still going to have those early adopters that are creating that content, that robust content for their classes. What's going to shift is now we're going to help out the faculty that are maybe a little bit unsure and they don't necessarily have the support, or they have dynamic classes, but they're willing to shift some of their components to being more dynamic and interactive. So that's really the shift. So what we're going to have is we're going to have a built-in support system for our students now with the Adobe Creative Commons, and then we will have that built-in system for our faculty. So instead of just waiting for them to come to us or attending a workshop or a webinar, we're really going to be reaching out to them and saying, hey, we've got this whole wrapper for you, a whole success kit, I guess we would say, for really coaching them and providing them with new content and just building in that support system.
Awesome. And so, the University of Utah has had a real significant legacy of innovation, especially in terms of digital teaching. And so it's interesting to think about, what does the design of a faculty development program look like now? If it's, I don't know if you want to call it second or third wave, you've already had lots of amazing things that we've seen you do. And your president was a huge champion of innovating in terms of digital teaching and the promotion of digital literacy. And so, it's important to think about really responding to the context of your campus. And so in the chat pod, there are a couple of questions for you, specifically regarding that last point that you asked. What are these creative kits? What is your package? What will faculty get in this new experience?
So what faculty are going to get is they're going to have, once again, that cohort model. So within that, they will have built in, we'll basically have a faculty learning community. So we will be housing all of these resources through Canvas, our learning management system, and we'll be packaging these resources. So we'll also, when we're not meeting within the faculty learning community, we'll have discussions that are going on, and we'll encourage these faculty to be sharing out what they're working on. And then we can also play a part in that also as instructional designers, as far as throwing out prompts, whatnot. So this will be meeting virtually through Zoom because we found so much more participation. We saw participation increase from this last year, which is exciting. Faculty that we've never been able to touch before. So we will be running this through Canvas, and then we will be customizing what this module suitcase, I say, is that they can then implement into their classes. So we can help them with the rubrics, the tutorials for the different Adobe applications that they're willing to do, that they want to try out. So all those resources are going to be in that for them. And then we will also have those resources. Gosh, I just lost track. Sorry.
It's just what's in the suitcase. Where and how are you strategizing the suitcase? So you've done a pretty good job so far.
Okay, good. Okay. Yeah. So in the suitcase, we're just going to have examples of what has come before. We're going to have, once again, best practices, highlighting best practices in there. And really any questions, we're going to have that support that's coming from the different areas as far as the librarians, what support is available, and instructional consultants. So realistically, we're putting this together right now. So we will be sending out a call for innovation grants right now. So it's actually just coming together. We're packing the suitcase, we've opened it and we're starting to pack it as we're speaking right now. So
the tour is planned. Now we need.
Yeah, exactly.
And so real quickly, just a couple of the material logistics of this. who's going to get one of these seats on the tour, and where's the funding coming from?
Okay, so the funding is normally coming from our innovation. Well, sorry, I'm just looking through these slides. I should have.
Don't worry about the slides. Just tell us
Okay.
what you know.
So basically the funding is coming. We're just changing the model from our learning services as far as where we've provided technology within the classrooms. And so now as far as learning spaces. And so now what we're doing is, now that our learning space has changed, we're creating that learning space within the faculty and having that one-on-one connection. So I think that's the important part. It's not just the faculty and departments that we're working with on an individual basis to incorporate these new ideas. It's how do we reach out and then create a supporting community around them.
Okay, and so what criteria are you looking for in the proposals, and who are you going to be looking for? One of the things that I know that a couple second generation faculty development programs are looking for is specifically to seed proposals that come from areas that haven't been represented before.
Yeah.
Sometimes
absolutely.
it's STEM, sometimes it
It
might
is.
be health science that we're really looking for, and so we cultivate those. Do you have a sense of the criteria of how you're going to decide which proposals get to join the tour?
Yeah, we're really actually reaching out to the areas that you just stated. We know that architecture and art, and then also even in business, that they have these digital programs. So what we really are looking for is embedding ourselves over into STEM and almost looking at the towers that we have at Calvert Village, where we have the health and wellness, we have the STEM, and we have the community engaged learning. So really going out to those different areas. We're also going to be working in honors, the Honors College, and then we're also going to be piloting some programs through the Career Center. So we have this nice outreach, but really trying to get into these areas that haven't normally used some of this digital content. So as far as, we're doing a call for entry, but we do have those specific faculty in all of those areas. So we're reaching out to them to basically almost do a grassroots. Who are the faculty that would be interested in this? So we are utilizing our amazing cohort of faculty that have been doing this for a long time. So it is, some of it's word of mouth, but we will be doing a larger call for innovation proposals.
Amazing. So exciting. Thank you so much, Holly.
Yeah.
You're going to stick around. You're not going anywhere.
Okay.
If you have time and space, if you look in the Q&A pod
Great.
and try to type in some answers for things that we didn't get to.
Great.
I tried to get to most of them. We didn't have time to talk about specific deliverables. So if you could look at that one in particular, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
We're going to fly south now, due south more or less to warmer weather, enjoying Kyle Bowen now at Arizona State University. Holly, we'll bring you back in a few minutes. Kyle, you're up.
Hey, good morning. Thanks, Todd. Glad to be talking with the group this morning. You know, I think this is a really important topic, and it's particularly been highlighted over the past year. And you know, what's interesting is that often when we think about how our learners, our students, will be working in jobs that don't yet exist, our faculty too will be teaching in an environment that has not yet been invented. So the past year and the next year will be striking examples for, you know, how this environment can change so dramatically and in unpredicted ways. And so for ASU, our thinking around faculty professional development is deeply rooted in kind of an institutional mission around kind of measuring ourselves by how we include our learners and how we help them succeed. And what that means is that we have to kind of actively explore these models, these approaches to faculty learning that scales through, you know, kind of creative and diverse ways to support teaching across our three primary modalities. So we have our ASU Immersive, which is our on-campus experience. We have ASU Online, which is our asynchronous online experiences. And then most recently, we launched ASU Sync, which offers live synchronous learning experiences. And so part of what we have to do is think about, well, how do we kind of take the kind of unique flavors of each of those and leverage them to help our faculty really support our learners in this environment. So thinking about kind of types of different faculty engagements, because as I mentioned, like we have to come up with a very diverse approach, that part of it is that they take a lot of shapes. So at one level, we're kind of engaging a lot of people at an introductory level. And then we have models where you engage fewer people at a deeper level. And in addition to those experiences that exist in between, the goal is to kind of think about the on-ramp or the motivations for faculty kind of in three different genres. One is as an explorer, trying to kind of see what's out there to become aware, kind of what technologies can I use to kind of support my teaching. One is an activator, right? So I have this idea, I have this technology, this approach, this affordance that I want to implement in my class. How do I do that? And then the other is as a champion. So as somebody who has had success and want to support others in finding that same success. And so I think having a really supportive, scalable model for supporting faculty has to kind of take into account all of those and possibly look at how do we help somebody kind of move through those and provide a kind of foundation for that kind of work. And so now it's important to point out, though, that when we talk about kind of faculty professional learning, that at the core of that really needs to be kind of equitable access to technology. And so at a foundational level, this means that putting those basic technology infrastructure in place. And over the last year, ASU launched what we call the ASU Digital Backpack, which is a collection of technologies that we provide directly to students. And this means is that a student can have and use these as part of their learning whenever they need. That technology that digital backpack today, they get it's a part of Slack, Dropbox, the Google Workspaces, and then Zoom, and then most recently we added Adobe Creative Cloud. And the opportunity is that students can mix these tools to support their own learning. But the other thing it does is it changes the calculus for how faculty think about what types of technologies can be a part of the learning experience in their classes. For any teacher, there is a big difference between believing that students have what they need and knowing they do. And so with the digital backpack, what we try to do is kind of move into the category of knowing that students will have what they need. And this offers us a lot of opportunities when we begin to think about kind of what are those kind of professional learning options down the road. So right now, we've really over the past year, we've been offering a evolving collection of workshops on a range of teaching and learning with technology topics, on a range of technologies, in a range of modalities. These workshops, the goal is to try and merge pedagogy and technology together to provide an introduction so it creates that awareness, but it also is designed to help that instructor, that faculty member, take that first step towards instructional innovation, right? So that first step is the toughest one. And so if we can help support them in doing that, then that begins to unlock kind of new opportunities looking ahead. So what this does is by providing this kind of introductory level of engagement, it allows us to kind of provide this at scale. So for example, over the last year, we've engaged 14,000 people. This is faculty, staff, people who support teaching and learning at the institution. And so we've seen extraordinary scale and extraordinary appetite for this type of instruction, for this type of access. And what it did was it led us to design better engagements, but then to also continue to diversify in terms of the types of engagements that we're providing. What we've since evolved from, since we've evolved into since then, is thinking about, how can we kind of help people move from that activation level into being champions. And this last week, we launched our latest offering, and that was in sponsorship from Adobe, is around what we call our Digital Fluency Creative. And what this is it's meant to be a more intensive experience, but it goes beyond just providing professional learning for the people who are in the program, but rather how do we create champions? How do we create and reduce that barrier to entry for other faculty? So this program has 4 different goals to it. One is to first empower those instructors who are part of the program, help them learn about the technology, create that awareness, become activators themselves. The second is to think about what is the community of practice that exists here? How can we bring faculty together to have conversations about being creative with their teaching? over the last year, we have seen remarkable things, remarkable resilience of our faculty and our students as they've adapted to a new learning environment. And it always warms me to think about the faculty who come from the classroom and say, you know what, I've learned in this experience and the next one's going to be better. And so it's that kind of constant renewal, that constant refresh, that is an important kind of way of thinking about, how do I continually improve in my teaching? And I think that's a key part of thinking about, what does teaching look like in the future? What is that environment that hasn't been invented yet? How do I prepare for that? And so creating that community of practice is a key piece of supporting that kind of continued innovation for those instructors. I think there's part of this which is around what are the key skills that need to be developed here in terms of what are the teaching methods, what are the pedagogical strategies that can be applied in these scenarios. If we really want to support and enable the digital fluency of our students, then this is a key part of this, is that in some cases we have to kind of innovate and come up with new strategies that kind of leverage 21st century skills. And then the last goal of this particular program is to design and develop what we call our learning experience kits, or what we call X kits for short. And the idea here is that to introduce design solutions for our faculty. So as the pandemic was first beginning, we had thousands of faculty transitioning into a remote mode of instruction. For many of them, this is the first time they taught that way. And they were kind of having to relearn, what are these teaching practices I've had in the past, and how do I translate those to this new environment? And so we developed these teaching kits that each one was kind of a design solution for the problem they were facing. And that design solution would provide all the kind of details. It was like, here are the technical steps. In some cases, it would have a script. Here's what you can say to your students. Sometimes it would have a block of text you could drop into your syllabus, right? And the goal is to say, okay, how do we get beyond kind of this challenge and into kind of the next one? And that was an incredibly useful resource for a lot of our faculty. And it was something that was born of an emergency. But what it said to us is like, well, if this works in this scenario, then we could kind of design kits to really help a faculty member kind of go into the take their next step with kind of instructional innovation. And so with our experience kits, we've been trying to do just that, is to design essentially experiences that exist at an activity level as part of the class. So what this means is an experience kind of has three parts to it. One is the introduction, right? So how do I introduce this idea to my students? How do I help them understand kind of what the learning outcomes are, where we're trying to get them to? How do I introduce it as a project or a course assignment? Then we have the activity, right? So they're engaging in a technology tool. Let's say it's digital storytelling or creating a podcast. It can look a lot of different ways. And then the third piece is the outcome. How do I assess this kind of media? For many faculty, this might be their first time evaluating a podcast. And so how do we kind of create that structure? And then to put that in a form that can be easily ingested into, Canvas, our learning management system, or shared with others. Now, it's not to say that these are designed to be cookie cutter, but rather they're a starting place. And then faculty can kind of personalize or customize from there. So as part of our digital fluency creative, one of the goals of this creative is to help our faculty in the design and creation of these kits. So while we have 20 or more faculty participating in the program as part of their own learning, the fruits of their learning then become tools that other faculty can use in their own classes. So again, from ASU standpoint, that's kind of where we've been and insight into kind of where we're headed.
Thank you, Kyle. Real quick, in just a couple of minutes here, people in the Q&A pod are really interested in kind of the logistics and the material aspects of this. I know there's a lot of funding and a lot of moving pieces. And I'm interested in particular, there was the large scale effort regarding, hundreds and thousands of instructors and instructional designers. How is that funded and organized? And then this other program that is centered around the kits, how is that being put together? And what are literally the deliverables that program is supposed to produce? You talked about the new participants creating their own kits, but I just want to be real specific about that so that people can sort of base what they're doing upon the ground you've already pioneered.
Sure, absolutely. So there's kind of a combination of pieces of that. One is that we took we have a high performing kind of small central group of experienced designers that pivoted as this kind of effort was underway. We pivoted into kind of providing this kind of support in a lot of different kind of shapes and sizes. But another piece of that was that is engagement with instructional designers, leaders across the university. This was not a kind of this was truly a one ASU style strategy. Is like, no, there are lots of people having or coming to supporting their faculty, supporting their learners in this environment. Let's have a coordinated activity here to kind of bring these kinds of things together. And then in terms of the experience kits, part of it is a lot. We're already kind of engaging in these kinds of activities, right? As an institution, we provide help documentation, we provide information. And so it's like, let's take advantage of this kind of work that's already taking place and funnel it into something that has a lot more consistency. Because for faculty who are looking for resources to implement in their course, it's a key part of it is like, how do we reduce that barrier to entry, right? So that you don't have to like go out and collect all the pieces and parts, that as I'm kind of exploring different strategies, I don't have to kind of deconstruct how somebody did it and then reconstruct it kind of in my environment. But rather thinking about it as like, well, okay, here are a collection of kind of interchangeable parts. They have some basic standards to how you might use them. So as an instructor, I can come to this and have an expectation that, okay, it would help me kind of shape my learning outcomes or provide a sample assessment, right? So that you can have a set of expectations that make them easier to adopt. And part of it is for those kits is that we also treat them kind of like a product themselves, right? So we can provide them to faculty, provide them to instructional designers, get feedback on what would make them more useful, what would make them easier to use, how would we make it so that you could kind of quickly plug that into Canvas so that you can embed that as part of your course. And like I said, a big piece of that has been shifting a lot of that discussion into kind of that design solution space, or what you might think of as like activity level design. What is the student, like think about like the course activity, the course assignment level. What is it we're trying to achieve with that, and how do we kind of effectively engage learners?
And so what seems to be a pattern already between Utah and ASU is that there was already substantial commitment to infrastructure for and resources for exactly this kind of development. And that's great news. There's a question in the Q&A pod about what do we do if we don't have that kind of opportunity to support. And I definitely want to get to that question, but I want to get to that question at the end so that we can have a conversation about that out there. My quick closing question for you, Kyle. And this is a little bit speculative, but I think it's important, and it's inspired in some ways by that question about from someone who doesn't have this kind of resource and opportunity. What do you think from the faculty members' perspective? Your sort of mainstream faculty members' perspective, are the biggest obstacles or barriers to really innovating or experimenting with digital teaching technologies? What do you think are there some of their biggest concerns and reasons why they might be hesitant or find it difficult to engage with these kinds of programs?
Sure, and I think it would be hard to kind of characterize that, but I think I would point to two. One being simply awareness. That communication in this is probably, I would say, our principal challenge. How do we just create awareness that this is an option? And two is to think about kind of seeing yourself in that role, seeing yourself as a person who kind of uses these kinds of technologies to innovate in their instruction, kind of understanding that that's something that you can do, that's something you're a part of. And so I would compare this to, over the past year, as faculty have transitioned into teaching remote, teaching in hybrid, they've had to wrestle with kind of their self-identity as, how do I teach? Because teaching used to mean I was in a classroom facilitating conversation with a group of people who were in the room. Now that means something different, and I have a different set of options. And so I think right now we're in a critical point where those changes have taken place. Right. So if somebody was on the fence about teaching with technology, they have since been pushed off the fence. So they're now they are seasoned veterans. They have, in many cases, 2 semesters of instruction using technology to engage their learners. And so I think part of it is now is like, okay, how can we help faculty kind of see themselves as innovators, see themselves as people who can kind of use the technology to make change in their coursework.
And so thank you so much, Kyle. We're going to transition to Ann. What's so exciting to me about the ASU model is that it's so comprehensive. It's if there's something all along, for lack of a better term, the learning curve or the starting curve for everyone, and that you've made this investment to those digital backpacks for your students, so that faculty know they can rely on a foundational level of these technologies to really therefore make the investment of their time into transformation and innovation definitely worth it. And so thank you, Kyle. We'll bring you back in just a few minutes. We're going to put the spotlight on Ann. And I'm going to introduce Ann because her story is a little bit different here, and I'm going to let her obviously tell the story. But we found out that Ann had put together this sort of this one particular faculty development program within a program she already designs. So to some extent, unlike Holly and Kyle, it isn't necessarily Ann's job or responsibility to do faculty development and teaching and learning development, other than it's part of a curricular area that she leads. And so I'll let her tell the amazing story of how she got something like 60 or 70 faculty members
80.
to learn 80 faculty members to learn UX UI when they were not graphic designers or UX designers. So, Ann, tell us the amazing story at Penn State about this particular faculty development experience.
Well, Todd, thank you. And it's really nice to be here. Thanks for including me. And it's great to meet Holly and to see Kyle again. He and I have worked together many times in the past. So yes, so I'm an associate professor of communications. And I couldn't do, I mean, Todd, to say what we did is amazing. If that's true, it's only because I have people like Holly and Kyle at my institution, Penn State. It's called the organization is called Teaching and Learning with Technology, TLT. And you'll hear me refer to them because I could not have pulled off what I did without those folks. So here's basically the problem I was seeking to address were the top 3 things in that survey that Todd showed us at the top of the hour. I had faculty who wanted to do better at engaging, and this is at the end of the spring semester last year, after everybody had been through this trial by fire that started around spring break and was just this sort of like slog and tidal wave that went in through final exams and graduation, and then we all caught our breath. And I said, what do we need for the fall? What do you need to know? And in particular, I was told, as you're organizing our faculty retreat, and I'll explain what that's about in a minute, give us ways to better engage students, because we can already see Zoom has its limits. So if it's okay, Todd, I'm going to use a PowerPoint deck.
Please do.
All right. Okay. So, which is a little embarrassing. I could have been a little more meta if I had made this in XD, but it's PowerPoint for today. Okay, let me share here. Okay, so what I just gave this little title, how to get 80 entrepreneurship professors and librarians to learn XD in an hour voluntarily in Zoom on a Friday during a pandemic and like it.
That's a great slide. I'm glad you're sharing it.
Well, it's kind of what happened. And so let me tell you this story. So I run the big entrepreneurship education program at Penn State, and we teach entrepreneurship as a minor and as a major. And the minor is available at 22 campuses. So what this means is 76,000 undergraduates at Penn State have access to entrepreneurship education. And that is quite a feat. And we don't have a department of entrepreneurship. It is a discipline that is kind of invisible at Penn State, in that there are those of us in all kinds of disciplines who were entrepreneurs in industry before we became academics, or we understand the value of entrepreneurship, and we know that innovation is key to the issues all of our students are going to be facing. As Kyle said, we're preparing students for jobs they haven't been invented, but my students are entrepreneurship students, which means they may be inventing those jobs. So let me just tell you a little bit about what I did and how I did it. So basically, my goal was to convey the value of XD in particular. Of all the things in Creative Suite, this is the thing that I thought had the most value for entrepreneurship educators. And I wanted them to appreciate what XD was, and I wanted them to learn how to do it. And while my institution does offer this wonderful array of workshops and classes that you can take, no matter who you are and no matter what campus you're on, faculty, and I'm one of them, tend not to do that stuff unless it's just put right in front of us. So I thought, I'm going to be right in front of these people. I put on a retreat every fall for entrepreneurship faculty because we're spread out in so many different disciplines. So I'm in journalism and telecommunications, and I've got colleagues in mechanical engineering and philosophy and soil sciences and nursing and in the business school as well, who are all teaching entrepreneurship in this program. And so we don't have faculty meetings per se, because we all report to other department heads and other deans. But I do this one event every year that's specifically for helping faculty who are not entrepreneurship professors to teach entrepreneurship from their discipline or from their domain. So what is the value of XD to entrepreneurship educators? I right away saw three things when XD was demonstrated for me by one of my TLT colleagues. And right away I got that we can show our students how to prototype. So we're always having them come up with ideas for new products and services, and often they're media products or things that can be digitized. So this was a really nice way to prototype an app. It doesn't make a fully functioning app, but you can get enough of it together to show prospective customers or potential investors. Pitching to investors. Our students are trained on how to put together pitch decks and how to communicate their idea, sort of Shark Tank style. Although it's way more than just Shark Tank, but you probably already know that. And they do it on PowerPoint decks. But investors and customers have questions that mean you can't give them a linear story. You've got to be able to move around. And that's the strength of XD, is it can be nonlinear. And then also just storytelling. And that's probably good for entrepreneurship, but also any discipline. So my approach was to not ask TLT to just offer an XD workshop and encourage people to sign up for it. I built it into the program for my annual retreat, which unexpectedly had to go to Zoom, like a lot of things in 2020. So I had to figure out how to do, I only had an hour I could give to this thing. So how am I going to do this? Well, I recruited TLT folks to help me. There's an XD expert there who agreed to be my trainer. And he also agreed to create all kinds of assets that my people could download in advance and have ready to go. So these are little like, well, I didn't bring you a picture of it, but what we had him do is create a prototype for an app that there's no business behind it. It's just the idea that what if you could have ice cream delivered to your house on demand? So this was an app that would allow people to order ice cream and it would come to your house. It doesn't exist in real life, but it sounded like something I would like to have. So that was one idea behind it. And so he created all these assets in advance, and then he agreed to be my trainer. So what were the outcomes overall? I had 80 faculty who they were a captive audience anyway, because they were at my retreat, and they learned how to use XD in this time period. And other outcomes were that the TLT unit here at Penn State had never given an XD seminar before. And so they were able to test their ideas about how best to teach it. And what they created for me is now being used around the university to help other faculty and students learn XD. And then also another outcome last fall and through the rest of the academic year is students really learned how to use XD because we had professors at many different campuses who knew enough about how to use it and understood its value that they could get students to learn it. And also the TLT folks were willing to continue teaching through the semester. So that really helped. Okay, so I just want to show you this as the context for the time that I could give it. So this was my seminar schedule for an event that happened last September 2020. And I normally, this is a 2-day thing, but given what everybody was going through last year, I made it this thing from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And it was all on Zoom, and that's a really long time to be on Zoom. And also this was the beginning of the semester when everybody's still figuring out how to teach online. So I put the XD workshop in the middle of the day because I knew I'd have people coming and going throughout the day, but I figured they'd be most likely to be on around 11 o'clock. I had plenty of other priorities for this event, but that was my thinking here. And then how I did it in an hour, the week before the event, Dan, my XD person, created a folder of assets, all the things that you would need to, all the photographs and art that you would need to build this app. And we sent out instructions on how to download it for those that hadn't already created their Creative Cloud accounts through PSU, and the folder of assets. So people downloaded that as part of all the other materials that I was sending out for the conference anyway, like here's, you're going to want to read this article in advance, and here's how to prepare for this, and so on. And then during the hour that I had it on the schedule, first I explained to them what the value proposition was, that, why it's good for entrepreneurship education, but I did not try to describe what XD does. I wouldn't be able to do a good job of that. I knew we had to show them. And then that's where we had 2 lessons. One was a lesson on how XD is different from PowerPoint. So what we did is we had a pitch deck from one of my students, and Dan took that slide deck and made it into an XD so that Dan and I could show people, here's how students pitch with a PowerPoint deck. And everybody goes, yeah, that's familiar. Well, here's what the same pitch would look like if you did it on an XD. And right away, everybody got, oh, you can move around. It's easier. You could be more responsive to the audience's questions and what they're curious about. And then the second lesson was how you can use XD to prototype. And so this is where Dan first demonstrated this prototype of an app for ordering ice cream. And then he said, okay, now you're going to make the app. So now open XD. So everybody's on Zoom, but they open their XD at home, and then they have already downloaded the assets. And he just in 30 minutes said, step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. And we were recording it so that people could watch it again later because we had to go pretty fast. So I only know of, during that 30 minutes, only one professor was able actually to make the app and follow Dan in that short 30-minute period. And then he had the app prototype at the end of it. But others went back and watched the video as a lesson and went through and built the app themselves so that they could then show their students its value. If they wanted to teach their students how to use XD themselves, that was fine. But also Dan made himself available to teach workshops for our students, which worked out great. We had a few other examples of XD uses in entrepreneurship education, but those were the 2 main lessons, and that's what I had time for. And so that's kind of how we did it. I just want to show you what some of my students did. So I learned how to use this, in June? Is that right, Todd? The faculty development Institute was in June. And then in September, I had a class of all freshmen who wanted to be entrepreneurs, who are also planning on being journalism or advertising majors. And they all had to do a project as freshmen. And I didn't really tell them what XD was. I just said, here's the thing, you're going to learn how to do it, and you're going to love it. And they went with it. And I said, what you have to do is choose a media entrepreneur, find one that inspires you. It can be someone famous, and you can see somebody did LeBron James, or it could be somebody that only you know about, or may have a following in an area or a domain that you're interested in, as is the case on the right side of the slide here. Lindsay Aaron, who's I think she's got a PR company in the hometown where this student was from. So they all chose a media entrepreneur, and then they had to go research that person and, if possible, interview them. And one of my students chose Charlie Chaplin, and I'm not sure he knew Charlie Chaplin had been dead for a long time, but that was his media entrepreneur. And so he's like, I don't think I could interview this guy. I'm like, you're right, you can't. And they created these XDs. So you've got one on LeBron James, who is a big media entrepreneur. He's one of the 10 most influential people in Hollywood now. Hayao Mizaki, which, well, I could probably send you the XD from my student if you really want to learn more about this person. And then Ava DuVernay, this was a XD about her, and then this other one about Lindsay. These are just outcomes from my class in the fall, but I know entrepreneurship professors around the university were encouraging their students to create their pitch decks on it and that sort of thing during the 2021 academic year. That's really the whole story, and I kind of zoomed right through it, but I think it worked really well. Even the people who, didn't really know that they were signing up for a technology workshop, I got them interested, at least, I would say. But I also know that it helps spread XD around Penn State pretty successfully.
Well, that's just an amazing story. There's so many things I love about that, especially the student examples at the end, to see these efforts come to full completion. Something I have to talk about is that I love how interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary this is. When people think entrepreneurship, they usually just think, oh, these are people in the business school, but it's not. It's faculty from across the campus who almost certainly had nothing to do with UX UI design, and to use XD as a powerful tool in all those situations, to me, is just a wonderful example of the opportunities that are available when we think openly and creatively about faculty development along these lines. And so thank you so much for that example. I'm going to I'm going to put, let's see, I'm trying to put the spotlight back on folks. I don't understand why it's not working, but oh, maybe you need to, yeah, there you go. You need to, Holly, if you would unmute your microphone and your camera so I can put a spotlight. And so we have just 6 quick minutes. We're gonna have to do some lightning round thoughts here. Real quick, we'll just start with Holly and we'll go with Kyle and Ann. What's something you noticed that's common among all the 3 presentations we just heard? Holly, what's something that you noticed?
So I think what I noticed is just getting faculty interested in this, and basically all these kits. So I think that we're in this very beginning stage. And so what I really appreciate is what Kyle and Ann have built and what we have to learn from them. So I think what I've learned from this is that you're really looking at 3 different models, and we're at the beginning of this. So, I think that's the other thing that's great about a creative campus, is the fact that we can all help each other out and reach out to each other. And I think that is such a great practice for our universities.
Kyle, something you noticed common among all 3 of the stories today?
That, learning in this space is diverse. It takes a lot of different shapes and sizes. And it appeals to a lot of different goals. So I think what it speaks to is that there's not a one size fits all approach. And I think also it tends to reflect the kind of culture of the institution and how kind of people work inside of those spaces. And so I think that's an important part of kind of designing what might be the right approach for somebody else. May not be the right approach from there, but in some cases it's a starting point to begin to think about, and how do we kind of innovate beyond that?
Absolutely. And Ann, commonality you found among the stories today?
Well, okay, so my perspective is a little different. I'm in the business of, conducting research and getting grants and doing the stuff you do if you're a faculty member. And what I know from my experience at Penn State, and also what I heard in Kyle's and Holly's presentations, is faculty need a central teaching and learning with technology organization to support them. Because I learned enough about XD, but I would not have really been the best person to teach my colleagues how to use it. So, if your institution has leadership that provides that function and funds it, and staffs it with people who really like working with faculty and students, then we all become better teachers, I think.
Absolutely, I agree. And so one of the things we certainly saw was collaboration, doing this together, not trying to go alone. Being open to lots of different experiences, not just in terms of your campus or your area as a faculty member, but in terms of your learners as well, having different kinds of experiences and accessibilities. I think we heard the importance of deliverables, something concrete that we can share and showcase, as well as being very strategic about connecting what we're doing with larger imperatives, such as active learning, or in terms of workforce development, that define where the campus, the vision that we have for our campuses and programs. We have just 2 minutes really quickly, and this is kind of an unfair thing to do in 1 minute, super lightning round. What about the person who's having trouble finding that kind of central support or finding access to resources? We're going to leave people with some resources from Adobe, but just in 30 seconds, Holly, what about someone who's having, can't find that kind of connection and support? Where would you recommend they begin in terms of faculty development?
I think through the faculty centers. I mean, I think that is the main point of contact, and that's what we're actually redesigning our faculty center website to really be more user-friendly and not bearing these consultations and these applications and anything that they need help with. So I think that's our main point, is going back to that faculty learning center.
Okay. Where to begin, Kyle, if you can identify the kind of support that you guys are offering?
Reach out to colleagues across disciplines, create your own communities of practice, find people who are kind of already doing this at your institution, and ask them a lot of questions. And I think it doesn't cost anything. And it's one of those things where you can kind of build those relationships. But I think the most important part of that is reaching across disciplines. And so kind of reaching outside of your department, outside of your college, into another area to find kind of new people who want to kind of co-create with you.
And any quick suggestions on where to go for help if you're alone?
Well, if I didn't have TLT, it wouldn't have happened. I'll just say that, because I would never have understood the value proposition of XD for my domain, for my field. But I guess I'd follow Kyle's advice, and also YouTube. Learn how to do it.
And so, Jason, and if you would kind of put some quick links in the chat pod for some edX resources and other resources for at least digital literacy. I've just added a free online textbook called Adobe Creative Cloud Across the Curriculum, which is a place to start. But eventually you definitely need to build your network. And this becomes a reason to break down those barriers and silos, just as the pandemic has given us a reason to have digital virtual cafes. And so I'm so grateful, first of all, to our panelists for giving their time and really giving us some inspirational ideas that are going to help us all. Thank you to all the participants who attended and gave their time today to try to work together to move the holistic, universal enterprise of higher education forward. We are, of course, Adobe Creative Campus organization. Please look that up on the internet if you want to learn more about Creative Campus. We'll hang out on the line for just a couple minutes, but we do want to be respectful of everyone's time and end on time. Thank you so much for being with us. The next cafe is August 11th, and we will be in touch with follow-up information, with links, with resources, with this recording, and with what's next in this series. Thank you, everyone, for being with us today. You guys were amazing, as always, and I'm so glad that you joined our cafe today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us, Kyle. Great to see you. Holly, really nice.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah. Well, and it's so impressive to hear what you guys have done. And we're at the very beginning. So I guess, we're really going to have a big story to tell next year, but also I think it's presenting, hey, we've got this great mentorship. opportunity that we don't have to work in a silo within our university, that we really are able through the Creative Campus to reach out and say, what are your best practices, and sharing back and forth. And I think that's really the value of having something like this is, hey, we're in the beginning, and we're looking to you guys also for what are your best practices and what have you found. So I really appreciate hearing your stories. And I think that this is going to really launch us into becoming some of the programming that you guys have already created. So thank you so much.
You were all fantastic as always. I really am grateful. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, June 16th, where it will be even better because we'll have Wanda White with us, who had conflicts for today from Winston-Salem State University. Any quick thoughts or questions for me before we sign off?
Is the June thing also a digital cafe? Is it?
It's part of the Creative Campus collaboration event that we normally have. And we'll talk more about that. We'll follow up, but it's exactly the same format.
Okay.
Yeah.
In fact, everyone's going to have to boil everything into 4 minutes, 5 minutes at the most.
Yeah.
Let's even say.
Can an academic say anything in 4 minutes?
Well, yes. Any other quick thoughts for us? We will follow up and prepare you for the June 16th.
That's great. And we'll have more points. Ours is just in development, as I said, and I wasn't quite sure if I was going to have the permission to be able to share this because it's in the developmental stage. So anyway, so we'll have it more fleshed out when we're meeting on the 16th. So yeah, stay tuned.
All right. Kyle, you good?
All good. Thanks, Todd.
Thanks so much, you guys.
Have a
Take
great day.
care. See you soon. Bye.